Hello, and welcome to the Badhumanist look at Destruction Warlock. So today I'm going to be taking a look at how Destruction Warlock is doing on the BfA beta. As always, I'm going to be going through the passives and abilities, going one by one, kind of looking at the base toolkit that this class has to, or spec has to work with. I will then move through the talents, looking at things like synergy, usefulness, how fun they are. Again, I'll show you how some of the abilities look as well. After that, I will talk about stats, specifically in terms of synergy. I'm not going to be talking about stat priority, though. I might recommend what I think certain stats might be good and or bad relatively to others. And then at the end, I'm going to give overall summary, overall thoughts, hope for the future, ways to possibly maybe improve the spec, or again, just keep it the same. So let's start with our passives. So the Destruction Warlock is a little bit different when it comes to soul shards, because instead of it just simply getting a shard like the other two Warlock specs, it gets fragments, and 10 fragments make up one shard. Now again, out of combat, you still start off with 3 shards, but in combat, you're building them up more regularly. You're building up these kind of pieces, if you will, more regularly. So moving past that, Soul Leech, again, all Warlocks have this. It's just a passive. Now, their mastery is interesting. It's chaotic energies. Your spells deal 26.2% increased damage. Again, that's a random percent that increases or decreases with the amount of stats you have, but plus a random amount of up to that same amount. Again, it also takes reduction of damage, and again, the same kind of random doubling as well. I'll talk more about this when we talk about the stats at the end of the video, but again, this kind of increase your damage plus up to a double randoming is kind of interesting. Backdraft is the last passive here, so your Conflag will reduce the cast time of your next Incinerate or Chaos Bolt by 30%. Going through the abilities here, again, like all the other Warlocks, we have Unending Resolve, 3-minute cooldown, damage reduction, Unending Breath, Summon Infernal. This is your main cooldown. It gets a 3-minute cooldown, costs 1 soul shard. Again, it is like a reticle type thing, so again, you will see here, and I'll use it in a little bit here, but you have the reticle to place where you want it to land. It impacts for a bunch of fire damage, stunning all enemies in the area, and again, it will be up for 30 seconds. It deals damage to all nearby enemies every 1.5 seconds, 1.7 seconds, and it generates 1 fragment every half a second. So again, it lasts for 30 seconds. It does one every half a second. So the total you'll get 15 soul fragments as a whole, right? 1 fragment every half a second. 30 seconds. It would be 60. I was correct the first time. So you get 60, which basically equates to 6 shards, complete shards, when that's up. So you definitely feel it. You definitely feel you have more shards available for you, which you can complain to some later talents. Demons here, again, this is just like you saw with Affliction. Now, Demon Knowledge is going to be a little bit different. I'll do that video next, but you just basically choose a pet you want to summon, and then again, each pet, as I showed you in the last video, has a command demon ability. And so again, you get to use that ability separately. So again, each pet brings different utility, basically. Soulstone's still here. Again, since magic is that command demon ability for the imp. Shadow Fury. Shadow Burn is a talent. I'll go over that later. Ritual Summoning still here. Rain of Fire, AoE. Costs 3 soul shards, and it calls down a rain of hellfire, dealing X damage over a number of seconds to enemies in the area. It gets to the channel. Again, you can see this like so. Right, we've all been used to that before. You have Incinerate. Again, it draws fire towards the enemy, dealing X fire damage. Now this generates 2 fragments and an additional 1 on a crit. So you'll start to see that there's a lot of crit synergy with this spec. Emulate burns the enemy, causing again X damage immediately and an additional over 18 seconds. The PR damage generates 1 fragment. It has a 50% chance of generating an additional 1 on critical strikes. So again, crit synergy there as well. Health Funnel, again, is the same thing before to help heal your demon. Havoc, so this marks a target with Havoc for 10 seconds, causing your single target spells to also strike the Havoc victim. So it's a 20-second cooldown, Basically allows you to kind of, multi-target without kind of multi-dotting in a sense. You would probably already be trying to put up emulates at multiple targets to begin with, and this just allows you to kind of be channeling your damage into one target and having that damage again be split to the other one as well, which is, my bad, quite nice. This is the talent. Fear, still there. Kilrog, same thing, Insane Demon. Drain Life, still here. Again, this does very little damage over the channel, but it now does a good bit of healing, so this is like a self-healing ability. Demonic Gateway, create Soul Well, Hearthstone. Now Conflag, 11-second recharge. It is reduced by haste. Triggers an explosion on the target, dealing X fire damage. Now this, again, like I mentioned, reduces the cast time of your next Incinerate or Chaos Bolt by 30% for 10 seconds. And again, there are maximum of 2 charges here. It also generates 5 fragments, so again, basically half of a shard. Chaos Bolt is your main damaging ability, so again, it's a devastating blast of chaos, dealing critical strike for X damage. Damage is further increased by your critical strike chance. So that's basically 100% chance to crit, but its damage goes up and scales with your crit chance. So the more crit percent you have, the harder this will hit, because it will always crit. And again, I will show that to you in the damage meters here a little bit later. That's a talent. That's a talent. Burning Rush, again, another talent. Banish. Alright, so let's actually look at those talents, like I mentioned. 15 row, you have Flashover. Conflag deals 10% increased damage and grants an additional charge. So basically, when you use a Conflag, you get 2 charges. So you get 2 charges of the decreased cast time on either Chaos Bolt or Incinerate. Eradication, Chaos Bolt increases the damage you deal to the target by 10% for 7 seconds. So again, after you Chaos Bolt, that target then takes 10% increased damage for 7 seconds. Soulfire, this costs a single soul shard, very long cast time, 3.5 seconds, and again, cannot be reduced by anything but haste. And it burns the enemy's soul, dealing a critical strike for X damage, a lot of damage, and it's again increased by your crit. So this works the same way as Chaos Bolt does, where it's 100% chance to crit, you have a 40-second cooldown, and the more crit chance you have, the more damage it will do. 30 row, Reverse Entropy. Your spells have a chance to grant you 50% haste for 8 seconds. Fine passive. Internal Combustion. Chaos Bolt consumes up to 5 seconds of your Immolate dot, and it instantly deals that damage at that time. So it's kind of an interesting talent here, because damage-wise, it's relatively neutral in the sense that you do remove 5 seconds. So you're removing ticks from the tick, but that damage is just going into the Chaos Bolt. So it's just basically, instead of waiting for that to cut off, you get the Chaos Bolt. So again, on a target that's going to die quickly, it might be a benefit there to be able to kind of use up some of that time to help with the increased damage. So again, it's one of those things where you don't have to wait as long to refresh it, and so therefore you can be refreshing it more frequently, and you're not losing any damage basically. So it's effectively like cutting off the duration of the dot without losing any damage. So again, it's actually kind of similar to a talent that we'll look at in the next video with Demonology, where again, you basically just, or sorry, it's the one we looked at with Affliction, I apologize for that. The one we looked at with Affliction, where basically it just reduces your duration of those dots, making them tick basically faster. Shadow Burn is the other 30 talent here. Blast the target for 844 Shadow Flame damage. If the target dies within 5 seconds and yields experience, its cooldown is reset. So again, just a 12-second recharge. It is not reduced by haste. It generates 3 soul shard fragments. Max 2 charges. 45 row, Demon Skin. Again, this is just increasing the absorption of Soul Leech, the passive. Burning Rush is again a movement. Dark Pact again is a cooldown to shield yourself by sacrificing some of your health. Again, I mentioned this in the last Warlock video, but I think this is a very interesting utility row, because it's not like, all the same thing. You get to kind of choose between what you want. It's not just like CC. It's actually like increase your passive healing, increase your movement speed, give yourself a shield. So a little bit different there. 60 rows an AoE row. So Inferno, Rain of Fire damage has a 20% chance to generate a soul shard. It's quite nice because, again, it is pretty costly. Again, it costs 3, so that's nice to regenerate some of that. Fire and Brimstone, Incinerate now also hits all enemies near your target for 40% damage and generates 1 Soul Shard Fragment for each additional enemy hit. So again, it's just basically allowing your Incinerate to hit multiple targets. Cataclysm is the last one here. Calls forth a Cataclysm at the target location, dealing X Shadow Flame damage to all enemies and afflicting them with Immolate. So again, it places the dot on them. I quite like this talent. I'm actually going to show it together with Channeling Demon Fire here in a second. So 75 row is Dark Fury. Again, we saw this in the Affliction Warlock. Mortal Coil, again, same thing as well. Horrifies the target, and then Demonic Circle, again, movement. Again, I like the fact that you kind of have, like, if you want, you can take 2 movement abilities, not maybe movement speed, but movement abilities, or you can take a reduction on a AoE stun, or again, you can add another CC in the Horror. So again, I like the different options in this row again. 90 row, Roaring Blaze, Conflag, burns the target for an additional damage over 6 seconds. So again, that's with Conflag. Not only will it do the instant damage, but it leaves basically a dot on there as well. We have Grimoire of Supremacy, which is while you have an Infernal active, which again is the Summon Infernal. So while that is active, every Soul Shard you spend increases the damage of your Chaos Bolt by 8%. And these basically stack until the Infernal goes away. So when the Infernal comes down, it means you have 30 seconds. And every time you spend Soul Shards, so again, either something like Rain of Fire, Soul Fire, or or Chaos Bolt, each shard you spend, you get that many stacks. So for example, if you use a Chaos Bolt and you have this talent, you get a 16% increase for your next Chaos Bolt. If you were to Rain of Fire, you would get 24% on your next, right? Just multiplied by that. And it will keep stacking up until your Inferno goes away. So again, I'll talk about a build that might be using that here in a little bit. Last talent is again same as with Affliction, the Grimoire of Sacrifice. It allows you to sacrifice your pet and just deals extra damage. 100 row, we have Soul Conduit again. Every Soul Shard you spend has a 15% chance to be refunded. Channel Demon Fire, so launches 15 bolts of Fellfire over X seconds, can reduce by haste, at random targets afflicted by your Immolate within 40 yards. Each bolt deals fire damage to the target and fire damage to nearby enemies. So basically, every target that has your Immolate will basically be targeted with this. So if you look at my ability right here, which is down here on my bar, I can't use it right away. You have to have Immolate out to be able to use it. And again, I'm going to show that now with Cataclysm. So again, Cataclysm places that debuff on the target. So I can do like this, cast it, it goes down, looks really cool, and then I can go ahead and channel Demon Fire, and it does all that damage. And you can kind of see all that damage that it does. So it's a nice big burst there. And again, the cooldowns aren't exactly lined up here. You have 22 seconds reduced by haste for Demon Fire, 36 for Cataclysm, but again, you get the kind of idea here. It's a very strong combination, I would say. The last one here is Dark Soul Instability. So infuse your soul with unstable power, increasing your crit chance by 30%. Now, remember, increasing your crit chance directly increases the damage of things like Soul Fire and Chaos Bolt. Not to mention, increases the amount of Soul Shard regeneration or Fragment regeneration you're going to get from things like, Immolate and Incinerate. So this is a very strong cooldown. And again, like I mentioned previously with other cooldowns, it feels really good. When you use it, you can tell that you are empowered. You can feel the increased damage of the chaos. You can feel the increased regeneration of your soul shards. And it can basically be used together for a very nice burst here. Alright, so one possible build might end up being something like this, actually. Let me actually just switch it to this. So again, the 60 roll doesn't really matter here. This would definitely be a choice thing. I'm just going to go with Fire and Brimstone for this. But something like this I found to be actually quite enjoyable. Speaking of some of the talents, Soul Fire I found to be just a bit clunky. That super long cast time is pretty rough. It definitely hurts mobility. It does do a lot of damage, but I found that I was able to do more damage with either of these, either by able to get, quicker Chaos Bolt casts out. And again, Flashover is very good with this Grimoire of Supremacy, which I'll talk about here in a second. or just eradicate, increasing all my damage by 10% after every Chaos Bolt, basically outweighed having this extra ability. And again, that cast time is just brutal. On the 30 row, Reverse Entropy is fine. It's a nice random proc of haste, and haste is okay. It allows you to cast faster. Again, it reduces the cast time of Chaos Bolt if you're trying to cast it without the reduction from Conflag. So again, it's nice. Internal Combustion, like I mentioned, I just felt to be kind of weird. It should be a DPS upgrade because again, it's basically just reducing the time on the dot while keeping the damage the same, and the damage is going into Chaos Bolt, so you get more like burst damage in a sense. Again, I just found it to be a bit clunky currently, and I just like the extra charge, the extra kind of ability to generate fragments when I want to with Shadow Burn, and again, the recharge allows it to be pretty flexible, where I can kind of save up a couple charges and then use them all at once to kind of get myself up to be able to use a Chaos Bolt or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show off this rotation here a little bit. So again, I'm going to sacrifice my pet, get rid of that buff. Alright, so let's drop that down, get that buff going, get my thing on there. So again, I should have done a little bit different there, but here we go. And so yeah, this is basically it. You basically just keep things rolling. Again, I should do a better job of keeping up this dot. So one thing, again, I think is very important to be doing is to be using Incinerate to kind of build up to the two soul shards, and then using your Chaos Bolt. Because again, you ideally don't want to waste the Conflag charge on an Incinerate. It doesn't help that much. So again, by kind of saving that charge for the Chaos Bolts, again, is probably going to be the ideal situation here. Again, like I said, I should be doing a better job keeping up Emulate. I even have a weak aura for it, but... And again, the fact that you have the recharge on the Conflag, I think really helps. It allows you to be a bit more flexible with that. You can allow it to kind of go over a single charge, you know, and then you can kind of use it to help increase, or decrease, I should say, the cast time of the Emulate there. So yeah, so this is the basic idea, basic kind of rotation here. You're just building up the soul shards to get to 2, Chaos Bolting, hopefully with a charge of the Backdraft to kind of help increase the cast speed. Refresh my Emulate. And yeah, and this is the basic idea. Again, every 2 minutes I'll be able to increase my crits, and about every 3 minutes I'll get a Summon Inferno. Alright, so let's reset that a bit. So, as you can see here, Chaos Bolt is by far the highest damage. And again, you can also see here that it can only crit. Like, there's no non-crit ability here. And you can see that the damage changes, and the damage change has to do, of course, with stat changes here or there, but for the most part, it has to do with when I increase my crit. So when you increase that crit chance, you get, obviously, a harder hitting ability there. As far as the auras are concerned, again, Emulate's the main one. Ideally, again, you keep this up 100% of the time. I did a very bad job of that. Hopefully you do better. Now, here's why I really do think that Eradication, again, is going to be the go-to talent, or one of the go-to talents, I should say, in the 15 row, because I'm getting about a 60% uptime on 10% increased damage. So that's a pretty strong increase of damage buff and time to have up there, right? I mean, Soulfire is pretty hard-hitting ability, but you can only use it once every 45 seconds. So even if you're using it on cooldown and getting a good amount of damage off of it, you know, basically lining it up with, you know, when you can with, you know, Dark Soul instability, things like that, even that's not going to, I don't think, make up for 10% increased damage on everything, up 60% of the time. And again, I could have probably increased that by a little bit more as well. So again, I definitely think this is going to be very strong. Now, as I mentioned, Flashover might work out really well with Grimoire of Supremacy, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that. And the idea here, again, is to get as many Chaos Bolts out as possible in that window, right? In that 30-second window that your Infernal is down. So let me actually pull my pet back out because I don't have the sacrifice anymore. It should be noted again that the Imp does give Blood Pack, which is nice, increases your stamina. Alright, so again, this time, make sure I got everything right, yeah. This time, I'm going to try my best to actually get as many Chaos off as I can. But you will also see that when I conflag, I get 2 charges of that increased cast speed. You can see 4 stacks there, 6 stacks there. I got 2 more charges. Let's get 8 stacks. Can I get an 8 stack hit off? Yes, I can. Can I get a 12 stack? No. Okay, so you can see when the thing died, it went away. But you can see it's a lot of burst damage, right? So that type of window idea there, I think, is something that could be very, very, very strong. Now, again, I burst up pretty high with this spec, and then it comes back down to the kind of 2.5, 2.3 range normally. But you get the idea, right? You pop your cooldown, and ideally I might even want to wait a bit on this, to be honest with you, with the increased crit, so I can kind of start building up some of those stacks and then using this Dark Soul instability. That way, when I have the higher stacks, I'm also having the crit. So again, that's maybe a little min-maxing that I could have done here. But ideally, again, your idea is to be using those multiple charges to be able to get like multiple Chaos Bolts off in a row. Right? You're just trying to kind of string those Chaos Bolts together, and it gives you this really tight, really bursty window there that you can do a lot of damage inside that 3-minute window. I think over the entire length of a fight, however, I still think that Eradication might work out to be better, just because, again, this really front loads the damage in that Infernal window, and outside of that, because you don't have that passive 10% damage increase, your damage does dip lower. So even though you have the extra charges and such, you're getting off more Chaos Bolts. You will sometimes waste some charges on Incinerate for sure, but I do think that we might find Eradication becoming a little bit better than Flashover. Again, we'll have to wait for tuning to go through. For all we know, maybe Soulfire is good. I just found that to be quite clunky. So again, something along these lines would definitely be something that I think would be good. I found that Roaring Blaze just does less damage than Sacrifice does right now. Again, with tuning, that could be different in a sense, but they're both similar. They're both kind of sets and forgets. Like, the Grimoire is nice because you don't have to worry about the pet AI anymore, and you get to keep that ability. So you get to kind of keep that damage, and this does a really good amount of damage, the Grimoire Sacrifice. And the Roaring Blaze is very similar. It just adds a dot on to conflag, so you're not having to think about anything. But I just found, in cases like that, right, in cases where it's effectively gameplay-wise the same, you're going to always take the one that has more damage. And there's a reason not to, because that's the only reason to take it, is to increase your damage. It doesn't do anything else interesting. And that's going to lead me on to stat synergy. And again, I'm going to come back to that point that I just made about the talents here in my wrap-up, because it's something that I've definitely been observing in the BfA beta that I want to really start to show in a lot of these videos. So, stat-wise, again, crit I think is going to be the main stat. It's the stat that I think obviously has the most synergy directly with it. Not only does it increase your number 1 damaging ability, Chaos Bolt, but again, if you were to end up taking Soul Flame or Soulfire, Soulfire, you will have the increase there as well, not to mention the increased Soul Shard generation between the crits of Immolate and Incinerate. So again, all that is very, very, very nice. Haste, again, haste is just haste. Again, it allows you to cast faster. I have found that in sometimes you're going to have to hard cast Chaos Bolt without any reduction, and again, haste is going to help you there, right? The quicker you can make this cast, the better it's going to be. So yes, more haste is going to, of course, be helpful. It also would increase the ticking rate of Immolate, which again would increase the Soul Shard generation there as well. So those are 2 places where haste would, of course, help out. Versus, right? It's just flat damage decreasing, and so is Mastery. So I mentioned how, again, for Affliction, how crits and Verse were very similar stats, in the sense that all they basically did was increase the damage. Crit just increases it in random chunks. Versatility increases it in a consistent amount across the board. That's the same case here, right? Basically, Mastery increases all your damage, but it does so at a random percent. Mastery is kind of acting like Crit here. If you think about it, what does Crit do? It doubles the damage of your abilities. What does your Mastery do? It has a chance to increase by a flat amount, but then have a random chance to double it, right? To increase it by another 26.2%. So again, it's not exactly like Crit, but it's operating like Crit in the sense that you have this kind of random spike of damage increase across. And so again, it's going to come down to scaling. Does the consistent scaling of versatility work better, or does the more jumpy scaling of Mastery work better? Again, when you smooth out the hills of Mastery, does that increase at a greater rate than versatility? That will basically, I think, be the deciding factor between these two stats, because they both increase damage and they also both reduce damage, if you see, right? So again, it's a very interesting kind of combination here where Mastery and Verse are doing very similar things, just in very different ways. Okay, so summary time. Overall thoughts is, I liked it. Again, I've never played a Warlock before. I'm going through these for the first time ever, and I actually really do enjoy this spec. It's very different than Affliction. It's a very different playstyle than Affliction. Again, I'm not going to care too much about damage, but right now it seems to be pretty even with what I've been seeing across the board with certain kind of builds and such. It feels engaging. I like the crit synergy. It's very interesting how crit kind of just works different for this spec. I think the Inferno window with Supremacy can be a very, very fun thing. I think the kind of the gameplay with Conflag and then reducing Chaos Bolt is a very interesting thing as well. It has some dot upkeep. It has cooldowns that feel like something, and that's a big thing I'm going to talk about a lot in every video. Is I want cooldowns that change my gameplay. I want the cooldown where I hit it and I got to do something different. It's not just this passive damage buff. And again, with instability, you're going to be trying to line it up with your big damaging windows, right? You want to line it up with Inferno. You want to line it up with as many Chaos Bolts as possible. And so again, while it does do kind of a passive damage increase, because crit increases your shard generation, you feel it, right? You're able to use more abilities. It's kind of like a haste buff for Affliction, where it's that same kind of idea where because you're regenerating things faster, you're able to use more abilities, and you can kind of feel the fact that that ability is on you. You can feel this cooldown on you. Same thing with Inferno, especially again with Supremacy, because you now have this kind of like burst window you're trying to focus all year round. Not to mention the increased shard generation you get as well. So again, very good engaging cooldowns. I like that a lot. Again, it has the ability to be kind of a very cool bursty AoE as well with Cataclysm and Channel Demon Fire, like I showed before. I think Soul Conduit is a dumb talent. I thought it was dumb in all three Warlock specs. You're going to hear me repeat that again in the next video. And maybe I'll talk about it in more detail in the next video, or maybe I'll probably talk about Soul Conduit actually in my Warlock summary video that will be coming out later this week, because I just think in general it's a very interesting case how this talent is similar to others in this kind of random chance to proc something, but it feels bad, and I do want to talk about why I think that feels bad, but I'll probably save that for the Warlock summary video later on. So these are my thoughts. Again, I don't have much hopes. Again, I think that the spec is engaging and fun as it is right now. I would hope that they do some better balancing, because, for example, like I mentioned, with some of these talents, there's really not a good choice. Like Roaring Blaze just doesn't make any sense right now because it just does less damage, and it's no different than taking Sacrifice. Both of them are basically make your stuff easier, right? You're eliminating any need for any other management, and they just do passive more damage. And I don't necessarily like that too much. So again, I do think that Sacrifice is cool because at least you get to keep the ability. There's some kind of lore link in with the idea of like sacrificing your demon. That's kind of cool. But Rolling Blaze just, I don't know, maybe have the ticks also be able to generate soul shards, something like that. Maybe something like that would make it better. Again, I'm not quite sure. What are your thoughts? What do you think about the Destruction Warlock here? Do you like the way it plays? Do you like it compared to Affliction and to Demonology? Do you think the talent layouts are interesting and engaging? What stats do you think are going to work out best for this spec? Whatever your thoughts are, go ahead and leave them down there in the comment section. Again, I'll be trying to reply and get some discussion going on in all these. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If you disliked it, give me a dislike. If you like these kind of videos, this kind of in-depth look at a class by class, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing, like I said, every class eventually. So I'm going to be finishing up Warlock this week, and then I'll be starting Mage later this week as well. Look forward to a Rogue summary video, and then the remaining Warlock spec and the Warlock summary video as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.